Hey there, everyone. Today I would like to read and analyze Allen Ginsberg's Sunflower Sutra, which to me is a perfect exemplar of the ethos and practice of beat poetry and of the writings of the beat generation. And before I read the poem in full, I'd like to provide a bit of context for what is the beat generation and beat writing. The beats occupy the literary landscape from about the late 50s to the late 70s, and it is really a movement of secular spiritual revival. It is concerned with liberation and freedom and the raisingness of consciousness and thereby awareness to structures of power and values. Therefore, the beat generation is always trying to transgress tastefully and in a manner titillating, exciting, and pleasurable the boundaries of the past. Therefore, one of the characteristic elements of beat writing is that it is abrupt, punchy, fragmentary, and carnal, and it commonly tries to usurp supposed boundaries in writing, in thought, and we're going to see that in Ginsberg's poem, which really is a beautiful tale of spiritual consciousness raising. And I think that the analysis that I give of the poem, brief as it may be, will prompt you to think about really what is contemporary American poetry and writing reacting to politically, and what is it trying to effectuate ethically and stylistically and conceptually. I walked on the banks of the Tin Can Banana Dock and sat down under the huge shade of a Southern Pacific locomotive to look at the sunset over the Box House Hills and cry. Jack Kerouac sat beside me on a busted, rusty iron pole. Companion, we thought the same thoughts of the soul, bleak and blue and sad-eyed, surrounded by the gnarled steel roots of trees of machinery. The oily water on the river mirrored the red sky. Sun sank on top of final Frisco peaks. No fish in that stream. No hermit in those mounts. Just ourselves, roomy-eyed and hungover like old bums on the riverbank, tired and wily. "Look at the sunflower," he said. There was a dead gray shadow against the sky, big as a man, sitting dry on top of a pile of ancient sawdust. I rushed up, enchanted. It was my first sunflower. Memories of Blake, my visions. Harlem and hells of the eastern rivers, bridges clanking Joe's greasy sandwiches, dead baby carriages, black treadless tires forgotten and unretreaded. The poem of the riverbank, condoms and pots, steel knives, nothing stainless, only the dank muck and the razor-sharp artifacts passing into the past. And the gray sunflower, poised against the sunset, crackly, bleak, and dusty with the smut and smog and smoke of olden locomotives in its eye, corolla of bleary spikes, pushed down and broken like a battered crown, seeds fallen out of its face, soon-to-be toothless mouth of sunny air, sun rays obliterated on its hairy head like a dried wire-spired web. Leaves stuck out like arms out of the stem, gestures from the sawdust root, broke pieces of plaster fallen out of the black twigs, a dead fly in its ear. Unholy, battered old thing you were, my sunflower, oh my soul, I loved you then. The grime was no man's grime, but death and human locomotives. All that dress of dust, that veil of darkened railroad skin, that smog of cheek, that eyelid of black misery, that sooty hand or phallus or protuberance of artificial worse than dirt, industrial, modern, all that civilization spotting your crazy golden crown. and those blear thoughts of death and dusty, loveless eyes, and ends and withered roots below, in the home pile of sand and sawdust, rubber dollar bills, skin of machinery, the guts and innards of the weeping coughing car, the empty, lonely tin cans with their rusty tongues alack. What more could I name? The smoked ashes of some cock's cigar, the cunts of wheelbarrows and the milky breasts of cars, worn-out asses out of chairs and sphincters of dynamos, all these entangled in your mummied roots, and you there, standing before me in the sunset, all your glory in your form. A perfect beauty of a sunflower, a perfect, excellent, lovely sunflower existence, a sweet, natural eye to the new hip moon, woke up alive and excited, grasping in the sunset shadow sunrise golden monthly breeze. How many flies buzzed round you, innocent of your grime, while you cursed the heavens of the railroad and your flower soul. Poor dead flower, when did you forget you were a flower? When did you look at your skin and decide you were an impotent, dirty old locomotive? The ghost of a locomotive, the specter and shade of a once powerful, mad American locomotive. You were never no locomotive, sunflower, you were a sunflower. And you, locomotive, you are a locomotive, forget me not. So I grabbed up the skeleton-thick sunflower and stuck it at my side like a scepter, and deliver my sermon to my soul, and Jack's soul too, and anyone who will listen. We're not our skin of grime. We're not our dread, bleak, dusty, imageless locomotive. We're all golden sunflowers inside, blessed by our own seed and hairy, naked accomplishment bodies, growing into mad, black, formal sunflowers in the sunset. Spied on by our eyes, under the shadow of the mad locomotive riverbank sunset Frisco hilly tin can evening sit-down vision. I find this poem positively beautiful. What so thoroughly redeems it is Ginsberg's characteristic beat style, which combines typical images of idyllic being with fragmentary, abrupt, carnal, and even hideous images of grotesquerie. While the latter is comparatively tame in this poem compared to other beat writings such as those of Burroughs, it's still clear that Ginsberg wishes to include the whole of the natural world in his poem, not just the savory and sweet parts. Doing so, Ginsberg's poem is wholly dedicated to unifying the natural world, eliminating boundaries both conceptual and physical. One of the ways he does this stylistically is by merging nature as idyllic image with human sexuality as carnal, raw, and visceral. We get a sense of sexual liberation that floats through this poem, merging the sublime and the carnal. When Ginsberg first sees the sunflower, dead gray shadow as it is, he says rather suggestively, "It was my first sunflower." He talks of this encounter with nature just as one would talk about a sexual encounter with a lover, right? Oh, it was my first time. No one knows what they're doing on the first time, etc., etc. To cement the spiritual significance of nature, Ginsberg blends descriptions of what we typically take to be nature, that is, the non-human environment or ecosystem, with what we as humans have artificially detached from nature and deemed a separate domain. The dead baby carriages, the black treadless tires of forgotten and unretreaded poem of the riverbank, condoms and pots, right? He's taking all of these objects and putting them together. When he speaks of the razor-sharp artifacts passing into the past, this, by extension, might be referring to the sunflower and such things like it, not simply the human objects of this list, even though razor-sharp is not typically a descriptor we'd associate with nature, especially the way it's typically been written about in poetry. And I might add that his grabbing the skeleton-thick sunflower and sticking it to his side has a lot of interpretations. On the one hand, this could be seen as ironic, in that he kills the thing, or fitting in that it shows the temporariness of his body, that they don't matter, that only our souls do, and the body will go away. But I think that there's an important third reading here. For death is one of the categories humans have artificially created to make the frailty of our lives uniquely valuable, paradoxically, by accentuating their brevity and the existential peril that such brevity incites in us. Yet, death does not really exist. I'm reminded of the somewhat ironic Werner von Braun quote that Thomas Pynchon places at the beginning of Gravity's Rainbow. Nature does not know extinction. All it knows is transformation. Everything science has taught me and continues to teach me strengthens my belief in the continuity of our spiritual existence after death. The same might be said by Ginsberg. As such, when Ginsberg grabbed up the skeleton-thick sunflower and stuck it at his side like a scepter, this is not an occurrence of killing it, since death is only an illusion on this grand cosmic spiritual scale. Neither is it per se a succumbing to and testament to the temporary nature of human life, like a sort of nihilism or resignation or defeat. Not necessarily incommensurate with this latter reading, I would take this moment to be one of spiritual triumph, an exaltation of life as an enduring force which knows no death. Therefore, through the evaluation of nature through consciousness, this moment is a denial of death. In its place, it exalts the bodies, as when he speaks of the smoked ashes of some cock cigar, the cunts of wheelbarrows, and the milky breasts of cars, worn-out asses out of chairs, and sphincters of dynamos, all these entangled in your mummied roots. In nature, there is pregnant artifacts that are testified to in our evolved bodies, right? We are one among the battling bodies of the past, and we are their result. Therefore, there is a continuity within nature that Ginsberg is trying to resurrect in this poem. Now, brief as this analysis is, I hope that it should show some of the characteristic elements of the style and the form and the concerns of beat poetry. It is quintessentially countercultural, concerned with liberation, with freedom, with revolting against suppression, and therefore it can come across as abrupt, even obscene, and yet nevertheless, it seems obvious to me that this is art. Considering the fact that beat art was often the result of obscenity trials, such as the infamous Naked Lunch trial, it is clear to me that beat poetry and beat writing more broadly is at the forefront of considerations of what is literary. In a postmodern fashion, beat writing really challenges this distinction between high and low art, between the quotidian and the everyday, and the sublime, spiritual, and aesthetic. Melding these two together, we get this exciting melting pot of cultural references, historical references, and aesthetic judgments. And I think that this can yield very exciting ways of thinking about one's personal life and its aesthetic import. That being said, that's it for this lecture. I hope it's been somewhat helpful and that you'd consider this poem more in your day and in the coming days. You can check out any of my other lectures I've done on postmodernism, German idealism, gender theory, post-colonial studies, and other classic literature. You can also become a channel member for $5 a month and gain access to, among other things, a private philosophy Zoom, which you can tailor to your needs. I also have super thanks if you'd just like to donate to the channel, because it really does help me out and purchase the books necessary to bring y'all this content. But no pressure, care about yourself first. That is it for this lecture, and I'll see you in another one.